Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Here we go, Barflies. We're back with another episode of the Barfly Tailgate Show. You already know it's live. It's done by Barflies, for Barflies, and all the other Bears fans out there. And look at this fucking crew to start your Sunday morning, right? Ryan Badgley, Badge, Eldo Gandia, the man, the myth, the legend, joining me this morning. What's up, everybody? Man, Justin Fields, Eldo, making his first start for the Chicago Bears on this beautiful Sunday. How you feeling this morning, Eldo?
I am feeling great. I got to tell you, man, listening to that theme song, just ripping through on a Sunday morning gets my blood boiling, fired up for Chicago Bears football. I am so hopeful that the Bears are going to make a great debut with Justin Fields as their starter. And I got to tell you, last night, Dan Aguirre, who's going to join us in a little while, we went to the White Sox game, and they severely disappointed us. They got their asses kicked, and it was such a boring game. But we had a great time at the ballpark. Progressive Field is a great venue to watch a baseball game. But we were like looking at each other saying, hopefully this is not a bad omen. But there were a lot of Chicago fans there, and they were walking out and saying, don't worry, guys, we'll get them tomorrow, meaning Bears are going to get them tomorrow. So we're really hopeful that this is going to be a great start. It's going to be challenging. You and I were talking before we went live here. It's going to be a great big challenge, but hopefully the Bears are up for it.
Yeah, I think, you look back at last week and you see Dalton go down. And, I think my reaction is, okay, we're prepared for this. We've got a kid. Let's get him in and let's see what he does. And, you look at how he performed last week and you see some things that show he's a rookie quarterback who is inexperienced in this league. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have some things that he has to, there's going to be bumps in the road. You look at the other rookie quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, these guys are struggling as well. This isn't a league you're going to come in and have a ton of success right from the jump in. You look at Peyton Manning, threw 25 interceptions his rookie year. But I think the thing that stands out to me with Justin Fields is you look at him, and I saw a video shared yesterday on Twitter of him back at a camp with Trevor Lawrence and these guys from when he was in high school. He dominated that camp. And there were guys like Richard Sherman there that were like, wow, this guy's a player. He's a real deal. And now you're going to get that opportunity to see him today in his first start, but he's going to need some help. This week, Aldo, this is really the first time he's had any practice with the ones, even going back to training camp, which in the regular season doesn't shock me as he's the backup quarterback. But in the summer, in training camp, the fact that he wasn't working with them at least a little bit surprised me a lot.
Yeah, I think, the way Matt Nagy has handled this whole situation, he should be criticized for it. And I know that when Dan jumps on, he's going to lead the chorus here on how Nagy has screwed things up with his play calling and player personnel decisions. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there should have been, a lot of us were saying he should have handed the job to a quarterback who can help you win now. And that, a lot of people believe, is Justin Fields, because his skills are better suited for the type of personnel you have around. If you don't have a really strong offensive line, you need a quarterback with escapability. And so why wasn't he getting, at least 50% of the snaps with the number ones, and maybe have a real camp battle between Dalton and Fields? That didn't happen. And so Fields was denied the opportunity to work with number ones at a higher percentage than he did. And so, yeah, he's been at a disadvantage. Going into last week's game, we saw that there was, the most disheartening thing for me was when he made those two penalties, those illegal motion offsides penalties, whatever they're called, because we've heard so many times that he doesn't make the same mistake again. Well, he did it twice in one game, right? But he would have been much more comfortable, of course, if he would have had more snaps with the number ones. And so now that he's got a week of full preparation with the number ones, and he's mentally set that this is my job. I'm because I think that's a big part of that. It's not just having the physical reps with the ones, but it's also knowing from the beginning of the week that I'm going to be the guy in there. That should help his performance a lot. There's going to be a lot of new things that he's going to see. The defenses from the defensive coordinator from the Browns is going to throw new looks at him, try to confuse him and stuff. And so hopefully he's going to be up to the task to pick up blitzes and not make the same mistake that he did against Buffalo when he almost had his head torn off. He failed to pick up that blitz. And that they're going to send in 4 or 5 guys, and that sometimes he's not going to know where that pass rusher is. And so he's got to recognize those things quickly, make quick decisions, get out of the pocket, use his legs. That's one of his strengths, use his legs and pick up yardage. I'm not telling people anything new, but these are the things that have to be reinforced.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking off air, Aldo, the thing that I brought up to you was that I think, I'm not as concerned with Justin today as I am other facets of the team. Defensively, they rebounded after week 1 last week, put a great performance last week. My pick for defensive player of the year, Roquan Smith, was absolutely electric last week. First interception for a touchdown. We saw all this stuff during the week, but can they put together back-to-back weeks of that? We've heard all off season and throughout the season, the start of the season, turning the ball over. Well, they had 3 in a row last week, and that, which is great to see. It brought back those memories of those 06 teams and the 18 team, with Roquan running down the sidelines and guys going, come on, follow us, and I think the defense maybe found its stride, but I'm a little bit concerned, and until they can put back to back together, it'll be interesting to see what happens today.
For sure. And I saw Joe's comment here saying that perhaps we're just not ready for Fields. Our O-line is not ready, not many weapons. Maybe they're just trying to protect them. I don't agree with that, but maybe that's Nagy's position. And I think that, they are, trying to bring him along slowly. They're definitely following the Kansas City Patrick Mahomes model. But that's out the window now. Your Alex Smith, Andy Dalton is out, and so he's got to be force fed. One of the characteristics about Justin Fields that is undeniable is that he's a tough kid. He's stoic. He can take criticism. He can take mistakes. He's going to continue to fight through. I hate to bring up Mitchell Trubisky's name again, but Mitchell had softer skin, and so he would dwell too much on a mistake that he made and so forth. That doesn't appear to be Justin Fields at all. He's going, when something bad happens, he's going to jump back in there with even greater determination to make things happen. So yeah, I think that the Bears were trying to protect him, and you're going to see a lot of schematics, a lot of play calling, a lot of things around him to make things easier for him. You're going to see plays called over and over and over again, and we might be critical of Nagy afterwards, saying, "Well, why did he keep calling that?" Well, because Fields, probably was very comfortable with that, and they wanted to kind of limit what he's doing. So, but I have a lot of hope that he can really, really show us something good, and that means throwing the deep ball, escaping the pocket, running that RPO to perfection. Those are three things right there that he should excel at almost immediately.
Yeah, Chris Watts here just said too, I'm worried about how Nagy's going to call the plays for Fields. That's always some concern. I mean, we've over the course of Matt Nagy's tenure, there's been, I mean, gosh, I'm so tired of questioning the guy. I feel bad that I've just piled on, and he's a great guy. He really seems like a great human being. But you look at the way he handles his press conferences, and then the way things happen out on the field, and his comments this week about Justin. Well, there's things that we're still learning. Well, that makes me a little bit nervous, because you had this guy as your number one quarterback on your draft board.
Right.
You get him in here, you get him to rookie mini camp, you get him to the OTAs, you get him to training camp. And those are the times where I think you're supposed to really start to learn and figure out who your quarterback is. And yet now, because you're playing him with the ones because you didn't in the preseason and training camp, you're just starting to see some new things. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit concerning to me. You would think with the tape that's out there on him, they would already know things that they may have not known, Eldo.
Right. You're absolutely right about Nagy. He seems like the kind of guy you'd want to have a beer with. And by the way, a shout out to my man, Ryan Billings. I saw him last night. We had a couple drinks together. He was in rare form. He is getting ready for this Bears game, and I can't wait to see him again later. I also hung out with Aaron Current and his lovely wife, Mallory. Had a blast doing some drinks called Lick My Pussy was the name of the drink. And so she bought Aaron bought a round, and we tasted it. We're like, whoa, this is great. And Dan, who doesn't drink much, he goes, yeah, I want another one of these. So I go over to the bar to order another round, and I go, hey, can you make me 5 more of those Lick My? And then she goes, pussy. Everybody in the bar is looking at me. But it's a really sweet drink. But we downed those and had a great time last night. But I think we were talking about Nagy. Yeah, he seems like the kind of guy you'd want to be buddies with. But there is sort of a we're still learning. I'm still learning. I've got to do better. And it's like, dude, you've been here long enough where we need to stop hearing that. We want a coach who is in control of the situation, who is no longer learning but executing. And I understand that there's been roster turnover because this or that and so forth. But this has got to be better. It's got to be better by now. Dan and I ran into George McCaskey yesterday. He was wearing a mask, so at first we weren't sure it was him, but I'm absolutely certain it was him. And I wish I would have pulled him aside and said, "Okay, come on, talk to me. Give me some answers. What the hell's going on with this head coach?"
Yeah, it's funny. I got to run into him my last time at Soldier Field as well for a game. But it was, more photo op kind of, thing than getting really to chat or whatever, because there were so many people and, whatnot. But I think he would be, I think he would be honest. He doesn't seem like the type of guy to not taking last year's end of season press conference out of that. But oh my gosh, I just, at some point, somebody's got to get in front of Nagy and just be like, listen, stop trying to give info that you shouldn't be giving and just straight answers. Like,
yes.
Oh my goodness gracious. He's a little bit ridiculous from time to time.
Right. Well, here's a perfect example. He's asked about Eddie Goldman. Are you frustrated with Eddie Goldman? And he goes, no, we're not frustrated at all. Bullshit. Come on. Yeah. You got to be frustrated with him. Everybody in Chicago is frustrated with him. The fact that he sat out last season because of COVID concerns, fine. He's allowed that right. But now, we're into the third game of the season and still no signs of Eddie Goldman. You told us, Matt Nagy, that he was day to day. If he was day to day, then how come he didn't even board the plane? In fact, Matt Nagy said he was a game time decision. He didn't even board the plane. So how's it going to be a game time decision? Is he driving here now? So that's ridiculous. You're absolutely right, Badge. One of the most frustrating things about Matt Nagy, at first in that first season, he came off as being a candid guy. That he was going to be different than John Fox, but maybe this is a Ryan Pace thing that he tells his coaches, I don't want you guys giving out information, because he has changed now, and it's very, very frustrating for us Bears fans. We don't want him to give away a competitive advantage with any information, but at the same time, saying that Goldman is not ready to go, it doesn't look like he'll play this Sunday, and we need to and we're frustrated by that. Hey, brother, how are you?
Sorry, I fucked up and overslept.
Oh, it's all right, man. You're all set up over there. Put the headsets on, and we'll bring you in.
Right here where the Coke is?
Yes, you got it, man. I got you all set up. I got a big gallon of Coca-Cola for him because he doesn't drink coffee. Dan Aguirre just got out of the shower. You're going to see him with his hair dripping wet. And he's got some words for Matt Nagy too. So
yeah, I'm gonna bring Dan on and we'll let him get right into.
See, look at that Coca-Cola.
What's up, Dan?
That's my coffee. I don't like coffee, gentlemen. And what's up, man? I'm happy to be with you all.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to be on with you, man. And we were just talking about Matt Nagy, and I know to have you come on right off the jump and get right into it, but
I've been awake like 26 seconds, but yeah, I'm ready. Go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah. Well, so, our conversation just led to just the decision making, his communication with the media, and how you look at the Eddie Goldman situation, which Eldo had just so eloquently brought up.
Why wasn't Eddie on IR?
Pointing up this week. Yeah.
Well, if he's going to miss 3 games, you put him on IR, then you activate another roster spot. Maybe all this isn't exactly planned for him, but it just seems like there's always something like this where you have to question his decision-making. But more on Nagy's actual decision-making within a game is what's more maddening to me. Aldo and I were talking about this for like fucking 5 innings yesterday in the White Sox game, because the White Sox were so bad yesterday that we just let's just transition to the Bears. And think about last week. If you all have already talked about this, I apologize because my ass overslept. Andy Dalton's playing well. He goes down unexpectedly. You bring in Fields. Clearly, Nagy had a play sheet, his little Denny sheet, as Waddle and Sylvie say, for Andy Dalton. But you got an entire halftime, and he still can't make an adjustment. The plays that he were calling, there's no waggles or bootlegs, or certainly not enough play action. It's like he was still calling the plays for Dalton, because he makes his game plan on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and he's ill-equipped to make any adjustments when things happen. It would be like today, I dressed, in Bear stuff, but it was supposed to be sunny. But if we saw, well, fuck, it's actually raining, we may adjust what we wear. Well, Matt Nagy wouldn't. He'd have no idea how to make an adaptation to something on the fly. But I'm sorry to take all the time. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, Dan. Trust me. I said to Eldo just a few moments ago, I said, man, I've just been nothing but nasty to Matt Nagy, since for probably 2 years, and it's like, geesh, I feel so bad,
Don't feel bad. Let me ask you a question. I know you're the host, but let me ask you a question for real. All right, so we're into year 4 of the program. Other than Mitchell Trubisky's 6-touchdown game, can you think of a game where the offense excelled in any time during this tenure?
No,
I seriously can't.
No. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. Basically said the same exact thing. Can you pinpoint another time other than that game where this offense, when it was called by Matt Nagy, now I'm taking out the Bill Lazor section of games last year, where they've succeeded to that point, and they have not. But
yet he still pounds his chest that he's an offensive guru and is still quietly arrogant. The only difference between Nagy and John Fox is John Fox will look you right in your eyes and say, "You're a fucking idiot." Matt Nagy will be like, "You're actually very smart," and smile. But he thinks you're an idiot. That's the difference.
So, Dan, if you had the opportunity to sit face-to-face with Matt Nagy, what would you tell him? What would you ask him?
I would be completely respectful, because that's just decorum. But if I could ask him a question as if I were in the press?
Yes.
Oh, God, that's hard, because you don't. If you got 30 seconds, you can't just come out. We can't be one of these guys that say, well, you should have asked this when you can't ask that. But if you literally could have a sit-down interview with him, I guess what I'd like to ask him is, I would just specific, because you can't just say, it seems like, So I would maybe focus on the last week 2 action and say, Coach, why do you think it's when Fields comes in, I keep saying it seems. It appeared that the play calls still favored Dalton's abilities as opposed to Fields. What is your reaction to that, or something? I'm sure he would be dismissive, but you can't just be an asshole to him, or you wouldn't get any press access.
Yeah. Well, how about if a reporter said, I got a question on behalf of the fans, many of whom are upset and frustrated with your play calling and with your decision making during the game. What can you say? Because the fans are kind of fed up with you saying, we've got to do better. We're learning still. All of these kinds of excuses. What would you say to these fans who now have sat through your coaching for 3+ years? What would you say to these fans to convince them that there are better days ahead? Something like that, because
that's perfect.
Yeah, because I think the reporters are really the voice of the fan, but I rarely hear them preface a question saying on behalf of the fans, because that kind of gives you the ability to say almost anything. On behalf
Jason
of the
Leisure
fans,
would say that.
Yeah, right. On behalf of the fans, why are you a fucking asshole? Excuse my language.
If you think about it at a lower level, because this is the goddamn Chicago Bears, a team that's been around over 100 years now. Let's say this was a high school coach, and his offense started when the kids were freshmen and they were seniors now. This shit wouldn't fly at the high school. Literally, the high school would be like, man, your group of players, they were freshmen, they're seniors now, and they still aren't excelling. It's on you. I swear, I think that's true. And definitely lower level colleges. I don't think
absolutely.
He would be fired, man, for real.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what Well, so it's amazing what I see in Chicago, and then a little bit, and I'm gonna not be as harsh on my Syracuse Orangemen because they did come away with a win on Friday night, but it's very similar. The Orange and Dino Babers and the Bears and Matt Nagy to me, because you look at both of these teams and the offense struggles. And I mean, the defense week one wasn't good. They rebounded last week for the Bears. Hopefully, they can come out and show another good performance here as well. But they've been the strength of these teams for a number of years, and the offense has yet to come up to the level of the defense. And what's the freaking cutoff point here? Because it's year fucking 4 in this goddamn fucking stupid ass offense that we've been hearing for years. Well, it takes 3 years to learn. Well, then you look at the fucking turnover at the wide receiver position this year alone, and you're like, well, anybody that knew what they were doing is gone other than Allen Robinson. Well, and Darnell Mooney in year 2. But you got guys like Marquise Goodwin, Demir Bird here now. It's when is it gonna come to fruition where we see this team like a Tampa Bay putting up 30 a game?
I don't even want that. I just want an offense that's capable and competent. Like, give us a top 15 offense. Make us 16. We're always 30, 31, 29, 32. It's just like, bro, just give us something. The point that we were making last night too is I just lost it. Go ahead, I'll come back to it. Tired.
I'll throw this one up here from Joe O'Donnell about Dino Babers. I kind of agree with this comment. We beat Clemson in the Dome, and next thing you know, Babers has a 5-year extension, and we've done nothing since.
Well, and what's interesting is that he comes to Chicago, he being Nagy, and he's an offensive guru. And he hardly had anything to do at all with the defense. And the defense was phenomenal in 2018. Phenomenal. I mean, he would sometimes pop its head into meetings. He would talk to Vic Fangio a little bit, but he basically had an agreement with Vic Fangio. The defense is yours. I'm going to focus on the offense. And then as time has progressed, he's gotten a little bit more involved with the defense, and the defense has started to suffer. So is it true that maybe everything he touches turns to shit? So we have to question that. We have to ask that, because it's not looking pretty for this guy. Matt Nagy really needs a big victory today on the road here in Cleveland, and he needs to then come back to Soldier Field and
take care of the Lions.
And get out to a nice 3-1 record and to instill confidence in all of us. I was telling Dan yesterday that somebody on Twitter asked a question: Will fans apologize to Matt Nagy if he turns things around and gets this offense going? And then my reply was, apologize for what? What you can't reverse all the mistakes he's made in the past. We were right to criticize those mistakes. Now, if he starts making good decisions and starts leading this offense to prowess, then fine. It's not, we were wrong. No, he finally is right. That's the deal here. And so Matt Nagy needs to lead this team to victory. And hopefully also the other big peeve that we have is his candor or lack of candor. Dan, before you got on, we were talking about Eddie Goldman, and he was day to day. Really, he's been week to week. He was a game time decision. He didn't even make the flight. Those are either fucking lies or he's a fucking idiot. So
maybe that's pace, because this is very similar, especially with Jenkins, to Kevin White. So the Bears have been lying ever since Ryan Pace got here. Yeah. But the point that I was trying to make a minute ago, but just was inarticulate about, was we were talking about this last night. So Matt Nagy's final game with Kansas City, they lost at home in the playoffs to Mariota and the Titans, and that gave us Nagy, unfortunately. But think about this. Tennessee goes to the second round. They don't exactly look terrible the next week. I think they had New England, but they lose. They fired their coach. After they've gone to the second round in the divisional round, if Matt Nagy wins a fucking playoff game here, we've got to keep him for 6 seasons. It's like the Titans. And I'm not trying to shit on Nashville because Cutler would want to fight me over that. But Tennessee's not the Chicago Bears. I mean, come on, you're a prolific franchise. The Titans can say he's not good enough. He got us to the second round. He's not good enough. We're hiring Mike Vrabel. Why can't the Bears do that and say, look, this guy got us to the playoffs 2 out of 3 years, but he's not good enough. He's not going to get us where we need to go. Now, I hope that's wrong. I hope at the end of this season I'm like, oh, man, they knew what they were doing. I'll put my foot in my fucking mouth, and be like, I was wrong. I hope I can say I was wrong, but it doesn't appear that I'm going to be wrong, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't know that you're going to be either, unfortunately, Dan, because I'm to the point with him where I don't even know what to say anymore because I feel like I've said it all. Week over week, I feel like I try to avoid the topic because I've just spoke on it so damn much over the course of his time that it's like, are people sick of me bitching about this guy yet? Because I'm kind of sick of bitching about him, to be honest.
I don't even listen to his pressers anymore. And I used to love the press conferences. You just felt like you were getting more coverage, more Bears talk, and that's always a good thing. But I've been avoiding his press conferences because they're always the same. It's the same 4 or 5 minute soliloquy about whatever he wants to talk. It'd be like in a presidential debate if they asked you a direct question and you're like, remember there was an SNL sketch years ago where they asked Palin something with Tina Fey and Sarah Palin. They asked her something and she's like, well, I want to talk about taxes. And just went on something completely on another rant that had nothing to do with the question. That's what Matt Nagy does. He just shifts whatever he wants to say. And then you think, man, he just gave me a 3-minute answer. He must have answered the question, but he didn't.
I like what R.A. said here. I don't think Nagy has that cutthroat mentality. But when is the last coach the Bears had that cutthroat mentality? I think there's some truth to that. The more and more I think about it, we've been seeing the Bears hire coaches who mild-mannered, and with Trestman. Trestman had kind of a corporate philosophy. He had all these corporate terms like toolbox of concepts and stuff like that. They're trying to apply business principles to the leadership of a football team. And it's two totally different things.
Well, didn't America do that with the president last time?
Dan, can't get away from politics. That's all right. But it's like football is a game where you're leading alpha males. And so you need to go in there and be tougher than shit. These guys usually respond better to a coach who is not their friend. Look at Bill Belichick's record of winning over the last whatever years with New England Patriots. He was never buddy with anybody, and not even Tom Brady, according to Tom Brady's father. So and so there is something. The Vince Lombardis, the Mike Ditkas, the George Hallis.
Can I add to that, Aldo?
Please do.
The Dallas Cowboys of the early '90s. If you listen to Aikman and those guys, they talk about, they won the 2 championships with Jimmy Johnson, and then, he's forced out or left or whatever the story was with Jerry Jones. They bring in Barry Switzer. Disposition is completely different. Jimmy is the Ditka type. He's on your ass. He's Bill Parcells. Jimmy Johnson is Bill Belichick, like you're saying. And then they bring in Switzer, who's not trying to be your friend, but Switzer's like, look, you're a grown man, do your fucking job. But he's hands off. And Aikman says that, they won that other championship with Barry, but it wasn't because of Barry, it's because of their talent. But they never got back there because they needed Jimmy Johnson's leadership. And it's not a swipe at Barry personally. They liked him, but his coaching of just kind of leaving you to yourself had everyone slipping into bad habits.
Yeah, I think there's that's an excellent example. Football is a totally different animal. You don't coach like a dad. You don't coach like a counselor at a camp. You've got to have an iron fist control over these men to get the absolute best out of them. You got to push them like they've never been pushed before. This is pro football, man. This is different. And Matt Nagy just, seems soft. Even Bill Walsh, who Mike Ditka would criticize and saying, he runs a finesse offense. Oh, he's the genius over there. But Bill Walsh was a tough as nails son of a bitch, man. He you don't see him on the sidelines joking around with players, coddling players.
He benched Montana in a playoff game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Against Minnesota. So
yeah. So I think, and it's a shame that the Chicago Bears, who have this tradition of hard-nosed football coaches, have, with two of the last three coaches, and Trestman and now Matt Nagy, have gone this kind of corporate way. And with John Fox, I think John Fox was just over the hill. He did some good things. He changed the culture in the locker room. He toughened guys up a bit. He brought the defense back to respectability after those terrible Trestman years. But, he still wasn't the answer. And Matt Nagy doesn't appear to be the answer either.
And Lovey in himself was, again, mild-mannered, but it just feels like he's still capable of talking shit, even if he's not saying fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
Like Lovey's still saying, like, man, they're not giving us respect, boys, and like if we could still fire the guys up. Like, what do you think Nagy actually says to inspire hope, or like that mindset that's us against the world, or whatever fires up professional men? Like, what's Nagy saying? I can't imagine a pep talk for Matt Nagy.
Well, it's like 4,000 Clover says, "Be you guys, go out there and be you."
Oh my God!
The video from their win last week that the Bears shared on Twitter just creeped me out of Nagy at the end of the game. What? That's what defense is. And I'm just like, it seems so forced to me. I was like,
yeah,
I don't believe a freaking word this guy is saying to these guys right now. And somebody tell me, please, a player tell me you believe what came out of his mouth from the defensive side of the ball. I just can't believe it. I just can't fathom it. I just can't.
Yeah. Hey, I'd like to have Dan talk a little bit about, because he's a fountain of information and historical knowledge. And last night during the baseball game, Dan was sharing some of the first starts for Bears quarterbacks in history. Dan, can you recall for the audience, some of the first starts?
I was thinking, well, Mitch lost his first start on Monday night against Minnesota. And now, granted, that's not on Matt Nagy's watch, to be fair.
Right.
But nonetheless, he lost his first start. Now, Jim McMahon did win his first start against Detroit. But other than that, Rex won his first start against Minnesota. But, it didn't necessarily go well, as like we said, for Mitchell Trubisky. It didn't go well for Cade McNown. It's just like whenever we get our next big thing, historically, it's been a disappointment early on. So that kind of scares me as we look forward to Justin Fields in a few hours. And I know he struggled last week, but I really blame that on the coach for his inability to adjust. I just hope that we can have our guy make his first start and just be exuberantly happy later about like how great he was. I'm worried because typically that doesn't seem to be the case with the Bears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said earlier, Dan, that I've just been going back and forth where I'm really hopeful that the Bears will play well and win this game, but then I'm also kind of worried because of the inexperience that Justin is going to bring into this game, and we have seen it in his play. The preseason game where he fails to pick up a blitz and his helmet is knocked off. He could have gotten seriously injured. The two penalties last week, the interception thrown. It's been a
again.
Tough
Nagy
goal.
could have helped him right there. It's a third down play. You're back at your own end zone. Man, just run the draw there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Montgomery breaks it because he's having a hell of a year so far.
Mm-hmm.
He had a good second season as well. So maybe David Montgomery does something special there. But worst case scenario, you punt. And your defense is having a hell of a game. So just go with the exception of Duke Shelley, the harsh exception with Duke Shelley, which I'm worried about today because Cleveland is going to target the hell out of whoever's playing nickel, whether it's Christian or Shelley. Buster Screens on the street, man. He can't do any worse. So I would bring Buster back. I'm for real.
Well, that's an interesting point, Badge. What do you think about Dan's idea of giving a call to Buster Screen and say, get your ass into Alice Hall right away?
I'm okay giving a call to anybody at this point. But, Duke's a great guy. He and the times last week, he just gets turned around. I mean, that's his feet get crossed up, he gets turned around, and he ends up making the tackle, but it's after the ball's already been caught. The guys run around, and I would definitely look at bringing in Buster Skrine. Even if you got to move Vildor out there or inside and bring in a free agent off the street to
Prince Amukamara is available. I would bring him back first.
Yeah. It's just it's so frustrating, because
or maybe you put Artie Burns outside.
But they had all these other guys in camp on the roster. Not one of them was okay enough to hold down this nickel spot. Not at all. I mean, it was Duke and Marquis Christian were the only other options. Xavier Crawford wasn't an option. The Trey Roberson, or I think Roberson may have gotten hurt again.
What about the Graham guy? I think he's on a practice squad, right?
What's
his name? Thomas Graham or something?
Thomas Graham, but he was a draft pick, but he didn't show very well. Yeah. And he didn't play his senior season. So he essentially missed 2 years. He's missed 2 years of football in essence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that concerns me about this game is, well, we know that Jarvis Landry is not going to play, but the Browns have been using the tight end in the passing game considerably, and they've got three pretty decent ones: Harrison Bryant, Hooper, and David Njoku. And so they're going to have those guys try to line up against a Duke Shelley and use their body. I mean, Shelley, one of the things that Greg Gabriel keeps harping about Shelley is that he's so small and he doesn't like small slot corners. And so you better believe that Baker Mayfield is going to be targeting those big tight ends when they line up across Duke Shelley. And I think they're going to move Odell, who Ryan Badge informed me earlier today that he's a definite go for today. So they're going to line him up against those slot corners too. So they're going to run the ball a lot with Kareem Hunt and Chubbs, and they're also going to exploit those matchups. And so the Bears defense better get a pass rush going. They better stop the run. If not, it could be a long afternoon.
Now, on my side, the camera kind of froze up for a second. Did you say that one of the tight ends is was it the old Falcon that's with Cleveland now? Hooper?
Yep. Hooper.
Yeah, it is that same guy.
Oh my God. He killed us just a couple of years ago at Soldier Field. He had about like an 80-yard touchdown on the Bears back in, what was that, 2000? It was opening day. Mike Glennon's game. Yeah, Mike Glennon's first start.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, man. Remember, Mike Glennon actually led the Bears down, had a 1st and goal from the 5, and, of course, we didn't score.
Oh, yeah. I was sitting right in that end zone. And
Howard dropped the touchdown on 3rd down. That would have been the go-ahead. Mike Glennon could have had that magnificent comeback in his first start. It wouldn't have amounted to anything, but whatever.
No. Dan, you're absolutely right. He had 128 yards receiving, and he scored a touchdown. I just checked out the stats.
So that guy's a Bears killer. He's kind of like if you had chlamydia in the past and the girl comes in and tests that, you're like, I don't want anything to do with that. Not that I've had that. Just saying.
You haven't?
I really haven't. I've been fortunate, I guess.
Oh man, I think we've talked a lot about the negatives. What are you guys feeling good about today's game? Let's get some positivity going on here.
Justin Fields. I think that's the biggest thing for me is, seeing him come out with a full week of preparation, and how he looks with Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney and Montgomery behind him, and I think that's the thing you have to be excited about. I think the defense, as long as it can play like it did last week, I don't think we'll have much of a concern, as long as they show up, in which I think they will. But you got to be excited for Justin Fields. I mean, we've never had a quarterback like this in the history of this organization, 101 years. And if you're not excited for this game today as a Bears fan, I don't know that we can help you.
Yeah, and David Montgomery. I mean, the guy is breaking tackles at an incredible rate. So even when the line isn't run blocking as well as we want them to be, he's still getting positive yardage. And so it was great to see him get 20 carries last week. I wouldn't mind seeing him get 20 or 20 plus today. I think they're going to use that RPO a lot. And so Montgomery and Fields, I think that between the two of them, we could see 150 yards rushing. And I think it's time also for Allen Robinson to catch that deep pass and don't make that terrible draft. You look at Justin Fields' numbers, and they would have been drastically different. If
Mooney makes the catch, if Robinson makes the catch, then you're looking at a huge increase statistically.
Yep. And then on defense, hopefully, Dan has promised that he'll put a moratorium on Khalil Mack criticism if Mack goes out and has a good day today.
If Mack would just have a game that we expected him to have when we got him, if he had a game 2 sacks, a forced fumble, or something where you're like, man, he changed the game today. I would love to see that. I want to cheer this guy. I've said that so many times. I want him to be as good as he was when we got him. And he hasn't been that way. But, we have to, again, lie about it and say, well, he's been triple teamed on every play. Make these excuses. It's like or to use a political analogy, it's like, he's our candidate, so we have to just cover for him. And that bothers me. But in terms of positives today, historically speaking, if Fields ends up being who we think he's going to be, to sort of channel Dennis Green there, that we're going to say, 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, we were at the game that Justin Fields' first start came in. So that's a very cool moment. And it's sort of surreal. But in terms of positive other than Fields, I mean, you've got a shot to be 2-1. Find a way, and that's positive to have a winning record coming out of week 3, going home with a chance to be 3-1. But if you're talking about specifics, I mean, you could have Danny Trevathan back pretty soon. Someone said in the chat room, where's Tariq Cohen? We asked that last night too. I don't know if Cohen's going to be back. It feels like his injury was way worse than they let on. And he's had 2 surgeries apparently. They've lied about that. So I don't know. Other positives is the defense maybe can sustain what they started last week. Perhaps Duke Shelley, if he's at corner, will have a game under his belt and be better adapted to make some plays. Do we know if Gibson's playing today at safety?
I don't think they've released the actives and inactives, but he was doubtful most of the as.
So does that give us Houston Carson or Bush?
That would be Houston Carson, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a huge fall off. I don't know if you want Houston Carson to be your starter, but for one game, I think he can get us through it,
The Bears 85 said he is out, that Gibson will be out.
Oh, wow.
So that's enough. So the secondary is going to be exploited today. I know we all think Cleveland's going to run a lot. Cleveland's going to take some shots, and Mayfield is the quote-unquote gunslinger, which is such a cliche, but that dude is very capable of throwing 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So they're going to take some shots, man. They're going to take some shots.
Which is something on the Buffon 55 show, Jared Mueller, who covers the Browns for BrownsWire.com said that they are anxious to get Baker Mayfield going with the deep passing game, and so that now with the Bears' defensive back troubles, this might be the game where they're going to try it, and with Odell Beckham being back, so it's going to be interesting. I wouldn't be at all surprised if on the first series Baker Mayfield tries to go deep on the Bears to test out that secondary, and hopefully they're up to the task. I'm a little worried about that.
What do you
So
think
here we
is the
go back
best,
to the negatives.
what do you think is the best scenario today for the Bears if you're writing a script for us to forget who wins the coin toss because they defer? But is it better for the Bears to get the first possession? And maybe even if they don't score, maybe have a little drive with Montgomery and then punt from maybe midfield? Or is it better to have Cleveland get the ball first? Because it kind of scares me if Cleveland would get the first, shot at it and then go down straight down the field and score. It almost feels like that would almost be a knockout to Matt Nagy because his bullshit offense is sit down 7. Well, that might be insurmountable for Matt Nagy, especially. And when the defense gives up an early score, it feels like they lose all confidence.
Yeah.
In the Rams game, when the Rams suddenly just light them up, it's like they don't know how to stop it,
Yeah, I love getting the football. I want my offense to set the tone. And I know a lot of teams, they want the ball coming out after halftime, and I hate to use this freaking analogy because everybody uses it and I hate it, but I want to come out and punch somebody in the mouth, and I want to do that offensively. I want my offense to get the ball first and come out and show that, hey, we're ready to go. And then if my defense has the opportunity to be, as good as they were last week. All right, well, we just marched down the field and scored on you. Now try doing that on this defense who had 4 turnovers last week. Let's see how that goes. But
and we're going to get Edwards back today too, so that should even help more.
Yeah, exactly. More pressure.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I think is going to be key to this game is Roquan Smith's play. He had a phenomenal game last week. It was Jalen Johnson who won the defensive player of the week, right? I believe in the NFL. I think he was named the NFL defensive player of the week or the defensive back of the week, whatever. But okay. Roquan Smith was equally deserving of getting honors. And so he's going to be lined up against these tight ends too. And so I'd love to see him come up with another pick and have an incredible game. I think, again, trying to look at some of the positives here, Jalen, I almost wish that the Bears defense wasn't so always strict about playing their corners on one side of the field and line up against whoever. I would love to see Jalen just follow Odell Beckham wherever the hell he is. I'm going to be on you all day, dude. You are mine today. He's our top corner. I don't really want to risk Odell Beckham against Kendall Vildor or against Duke Shelley. I'd love for them to adapt that system, but I'm not a football coach. But just as a fan, I wonder why they don't do that. There's clearly a big disparity between Jalen and the rest of the cornerbacks. Why not have them on their top wide receiver 100% of the time? I don't get that.
So KB wants some fantasy advice here. Should I sit Lamar Jackson and start Fields? Lamar's playing Detroit, so I'm going to run with Jackson here. And then he said, and someone call AC. I don't know. I don't know if he's alive right now.
Did I say this story on the air? I don't remember or not. But AC was at the bar last night and buying drinks. He's probably hurting a little bit right now.
Yeah.
He
was already. A great question from Jeremy Ford too. What's with the NFL ignoring Roquan? I just don't understand it. This guy is the top echelon linebacker with the most storied history of linebackers in their franchise.
It's because nobody respects the Bears right now.
You're right, Dan. It's really what it is, I think.
It's because where he's at. It's because of his coach, and no one thinks the Bears can be anything but 6-11 or whatever the fuck. So I think he'll get his respect if the Bears as a team excel a little bit more.
He was left off the top 100 list, which is a list that's compiled by players too. I think it's the players that vote on that.
Yep.
So it is interesting that even his peers didn't think he was worthy of being on a top 100 list. So maybe Roquan's going to be playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder this year. And as Dan and I were talking last night about his contract status.
Thank God there's a 5th-year option.
Yeah, exactly. So, but because he's going to demand some big bucks, and he's deserving of it. I mean, the guy.
And we've got to find a way to pay him.
Yeah,
period.
Exactly. Absolutely. Goodbye, Jimmy Graham.
Someone said in the chat room a few minutes ago, well, we've said it. We've all Bear fans have said it. Or thought it, like, well, if Graham's not going to be utilized at all, then why did we let Kyle Fuller go again?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question.
Doesn't it feel like Nagy, if he's using one, like let's say Montgomery would get 20 carries today, it feels like if he's using one player, or like if it's Allen Robinson who's highlighted or whatever, then everyone else, it's at the expense of everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's like he can't fathom an offense where everyone is involved. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that. Why is it if Allen Robinson has a good game today or David Montgomery that Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham can't also catch passes? Why can't Darnell Mooney catch passes? It's like he highlights one player and he's like, well, guys, it's not in the game plan to get you involved today, so you're not going to catch anything.
Yeah. I think they scheme against other teams' weaknesses, and perhaps they, thought last week, for instance, against the Bengals, that the tight end wasn't a good matchup. I don't believe that myself, but I'm just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But it is that whole tight end is interesting. I know on Buffon 55 this past week, he was ranting against, why do we have so many tight ends? Why is Jimmy Graham still on this roster, et cetera, et cetera? And I challenged him on this, but I think he's right in how can you not, as a player personnel person, and Ryan Pace and all of those people who are involved with player personnel decisions with Chicago Bears, how could they not forecast that Jesper Horsted was going to be good enough to make the 53-man roster, thus making Jimmy Graham expendable and therefore allowing the team to use those millions of dollars of Graham's salary towards a Kyle Fuller or towards wherever you can use those dollars. I think that's another knock on the player personnel decisions that have been made by this team. You have to look at a Jesper Horsted and say, you know what, this guy is ascending. This guy could be ready. Let's take a chance on him and let Graham go, and let's try to, pay Kyle Fuller, on this option year that he had. So it didn't work out. But my biggest peeve with this entire team, and I have a lot of them, but my biggest peeve is that Ryan Pace in his time here in Chicago, what is it now, 7 years? He has never developed a 53-man roster that doesn't have gigantic holes. And when at the end of when they got down to the 53-man roster, he and Matt Nagy were bragging about the depth on this team. Bullshit. You got no fucking depth at the slot corner. You don't even have a starter at the slot corner. Right. You don't have depth at the left tackle position. You were lucky that Peters is out fishing and that he has shown up and has played adequately enough. There's been areas in this team year after year after year where there's not any depth, and then they have the gall to brag about the depth this year. That's just another fabrication, another lie that they have spun throughout
the tight end room. Does look on paper like to be very impressive to me. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I don't have a problem, honestly, with Graham being here is that he does still have some skill. He can catch 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, but it's up to the coach to have him in the situations to achieve. Right. It feels like Jesse James. I saw him in Pittsburgh. I don't know what he really did in Detroit, because it feels like, I don't know if he was there 1 year or 2 years, but in Pittsburgh, the guy has really good hands. He had toughness, but once more, he's not on the field. or if he is, it's for one play. It's like these guys have talent. It's up to our coach to use them, and I don't think he knows what the fuck he's doing. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hate to keep saying that, but that's the thesis of the day, is that if everyone on the offense has this skill, it's up to him to utilize them, and I don't think he knows how to do so.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I know you guys are going to want to get to head to tailgating and all that stuff. We've been on for an hour. So why don't we do this like we always do here? Let's do some score predictions. And Eldo, I'm going to start with you first. Why don't you give us a score prediction for today?
I'm going to play the optimist this morning, despite all the negativity that we've been shouting. But I do believe that the Bears can come into Cleveland here and upset this team. Cleveland has they played down to the competition last week against the Texans and were able to win that game. But they didn't play as well as people expected. They lost against the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. But I think that there's still a lot of questions with this Browns team that the Bears can overtake them if primarily they've got to win that line of scrimmage. Their offensive line has to stop Clowney and Myles Garrett. And on the defensive line, Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn have to do what they did last week. If they can win the line of scrimmage, I think that the Chicago Bears can win this game by a score of 27-24. And Justin Fields, I really believe he's going to make some mistakes today. Maybe he'll throw a pick or some kind of a turnover. But I do believe that Matt Nagy is going to let him go. There's going to be planned running plays for him. He could get 50, 60 yards rushing and throw for 250 yards, which would be a great debut for him as a starter. But as long as the Bears come out with a win, I don't care what the score is. I don't care what the individual performances are. I want to win today. I want to drive to Chicago with a smile on my face. Dan told me yesterday that if the Bears lose today, that drive to West Virginia is gonna be miserable.
Yeah, for real.
Well, let's get your score prediction, Dan.
All right, I never going to tell you that the Bears are going to lose. I mean, even if I think in my heart of hearts that they're the underdogs, I'm going to come up with a way that makes it seem plausible that they can win. So I'll roll this at you today. Let's say Cairo Santos kicks 4 field goals because our offense typically struggles because of Matt Nagy. All right, so I'll go with Santos hitting 4 field goals, the offense getting a touchdown at some point. Maybe the defense gives them a short field. And then at the end of the game, Fields leads the drive to score. The Bears win 26-24.
Ooh, all right. I'm actually, so I was the negative guy the first 2 weeks of the season on this show. And I picked against the Bears, which it is very painful to do. But this week, as I said to Eldo when we got on this morning, I have a different aura, a different feeling today. And I think that the Bears are going to come out today and put an entire game together for the first time in the Matt Nagy era. Offense, defense, special teams. And I'm going to give Matt Nagy some credit here, and I'm going to say that this team scores 31 points and beats the Browns 31-17 today.
Wow, that would be tremendous.
Yeah.
I want to go in the other room and beat off thinking about that.
Yes.
Yeah, make sure you close the door.
Yeah, shut the door.
Hey, someone asked here as a King Pookie Nation if I'm driving to Chicago Friday. No, that's Saturday, but really early Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So I hope to be there Saturday.
I gotta say this real quick. Dan said that he's been to 2 games where the Bears had 3 games where the Bears had 2 games where the Bears had a 14-point lead.
No, they had a 14-point lead in 3 games, but in 2 of those games they led 17-3. So if they lead 17-3 today, it's going to like, oh no, this has happened 2 times before and they've blown it. So literally the first game I was at ever, Chris Chandler threw like a 70-yard touchdown to Des White as soon as the game started. And I thought, all right, this is my first game. We're going to win today. We didn't win.
So if the score is Bears 17,
and Cleveland
Browns 3, I'm escorting Dan out of the stadium personally myself.
I'm going to feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, like every game I go to, man. Where's Rod Serling to say something, poetic?
Yeah. By the way, Ryan Billings says that he is going to start Fields now after he heard what you said, Badge. So
Yep.
But Ryan, why don't you get the advice of Fantasy Football Goon? They're going to be on at 10:15 Central, 11:15 Eastern. It's Adam Sham and Joe Mandel. They've got the expert advice on fantasy football. So that's coming up next. And then Dan and I will be on Bear Football with Tyler Ellis and John
Gaines report.
Yeah. And so that's going to be about 2 hours after the game. So after the Bears game, usually we're on immediately after the game, but we are pushing that back so that Dan and I can make our way back to the hotel here and do the broadcast with those guys. So looking forward to that. And then Greg Gabriel's show is not going to be on tomorrow. It's going to be on Wednesday morning, and he's anxious to break down Justin Fields' performance. And
so does
forth.
Does that mean Aldo Gandia is going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Oh, all right, fellas. Nice. Well, as we always do as we wrap up the Barfly Tailgate show, let's end this thing with a big old bear down.
Bear down!
Bear down!
Oh.